This video is powered by LearnToPlay.live, the only hardware synth performance course. Register now and enjoy 40% off. Hey gang, this is Analog Kitchen and thank you for tuning in to this broadcast. If this is your first time here, don't hesitate to click subscribe and hit that notification bell. Never upload a new video, you'll be kept in the loop and you'll not miss out on anything. Stick around till the end of this video, I will tell you all about LearnToPlay.live. Now I've got this setup that I did last week, but new modules means new insights, and I want to just tell you how you can make complex rhythms for making techno using a modular. So that is today's video. I'm going to do a jam and come back to you shortly. Enjoy the mayhem, turn up the noise. Okay, so, okay, now, a lot's happening, and I will explain to you what actually is happening. Let's first go over what's on the desk. There is a mixer sitting right here that is taking care of mainly two separate channels of input coming from what's happening over here. So we've got the modular synthesizer, we'll get into that. I've got the Octatrack sitting right here, we'll get into that as well. And there's the multi-clock, and there's a reason why the multi-clock is here. Okay, now first, the Octatrack has got different tasks to do. It is a mixer, it is a sound source selector, and it is also a sampler. There's essentially two different channels coming out, the main out, left and a right, going to the mixer, and I've got a separate kick output because I would like to have control over the kick drum that also is coming out of the Octatrack. Now that sounds like this. Now usually the kick drum would come from the Octatrack. There's different things that I can do with it, meaning if the sample is just embedded within the memory of the Octatrack, I can take a low end by programming, say, the master output of the Octatrack, octa meaning 8 separate channels, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. 8 is a channel that I can't mute or do anything with, because all the 7 tracks that you can select are going through the 8th track in studio mode. That is, you have to tell the Octatrack to do it, but there's certain things you can do with this, meaning if I select track 8, which is the master track, the stereo output on the DJ mixer, if you will, that is where I can stick certain effects on. So in this case, I've made sure that this fader takes out low end, and it's taking low end by a kick that's going through it. Now that's the mixer portion of it. I will get into it later, but it means that the kick drum that is coming from the modular synthesizer is going through the Octatrack by means of a through machine. There's different things that you can tell these channels to do. There is on one side MIDI, which is all this stuff over here, all the yellow knobs that I'm not using today, and then there's audio with all the red ones going up to 8, and 8 you can't mute. 1 you can. So a through machine means I'll tell this channel to listen to incoming audio by means of the 4 separate inputs that I have. Now, input A on the AB, and there's 4 inputs, or 4 mono inputs that you can obviously use as 2 stereo inputs. So the one input A, is taking care of the kick. The second input is taking care of a snare. Second input is taking care of the rest of my drums, as you can hear here, which is has a little bit of an 808 business thingy going on there. I'll tell you what, that's on track 2, and track 3 is my snare drum, also coming from the modular. So I've got 3 through machines that I'm using to get sound from the modular into the Octatrack and then out the stereo output, or in the case of the kick, I told track 1 to just listen to not the same output but the Q output, right? So this is coming out, looking at the mixer, all the drums that I've got here are coming out of one stereo output on this little EPM 8 mixer, and then the kick is coming out of a separate output, crackling fader. So I can mute it here, I can mute it here. Going back to the kick drum, let's go over what is in the box. I'll try to keep it as simple as I can, but then again, you might have to pause the video and go retrace my steps in order to figure out what's happening. I've got a kick playing from the battering ram, but first let's go over how this whole thing works. I can send out MIDI, and I have a module that can take that MIDI and transfer it into little bytes and bits and bobs that the rest of the modular can actually listen to, meaning a clock signal. We're making dance music, so at some point do we need to get the rhythm transferred from here onto the modular in order for these things to also play in time with what is happening over here, because I would like to add certain sounds that I have not got on the modular synthesizer. I like to address them from the Octatrack, but it means that things have to run in time. So where there's a big controversy on sync buttons within the DJ realm, and you would not never ever ever in your life connect one CDJ by sync to another CDJ, which people deem blasphemous in the DJ world. We live and rely on the sync, because I would not like to have like a whole horse carriage go. You can't dance to it. Either you're missing a leg or you got one leg too many. You choose, but that's not the case. What I did find though is that with the module that I have, there was a bit of MIDI latency. It did not run in time. So that's why the multi-clock is here. The multi-clock is taking care of sending out these different MIDI clock signals. In this case, I've got this Sitka gravity module. That's the first one I'm going to talk about. The Sitka gravity module is taking MIDI in by means of this green, bluish cable, and that goes to the multi-clock, and then it gets MIDI in and transfers it into pulses. And then on the rest of the Sitka module, I can tell these 6 channels, there are 6 channels, how fast they need to respond. So there's a multiplier or a division in this clock already, which is cool. I tell it to respond to MIDI, that's what it's doing. But you can also select one of the 6 channels and then just like hold this in. And then once you go to a different channel, so 0 to 6, 0 meaning the whole module listens to that. And this is like my A1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then you can tell it like it needs to be a sequence or it needs to be something else. Now the kick drum is getting triggered from this module. So if I was to go in here and say edit pattern, I can see that my kick drum is playing over there. So I can go to this specific place and say you can see. So, but very stationary though. I've not figured out how to just send this different signals so that I can jump in between things, which is what I can do with the one module over. No, I've not done that. So in this case, I'm just going to send out a straight kick out of one into the battering ram. I'm using the Shock Mod battering ram as a kick drum. We'll get to that. First, let's go over what's on the top row, and I'll try to make it fast. Okay, so next to it, if the clock signals are getting distributed, the first step that I mostly do is, do I need this same clock pulse that you can see blinking like crazy here? Do I need it everywhere? Because pretty much everything is going to do the same thing. So you need some sort of a clock division, something that can do fractures. 4 milliseconds makes this nice rotating clock divider, and Dopefer makes this nice A160-1, also a clock division. And then you can see all these different elements being, you know, chopped into 8s and 16s and 32s and 64s, and you know, here it goes from 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it can do polymeters and polyrhythmical stuff, which is cool. So if I was to play a hi-hat, maybe this hi-hat is playing because I've programmed the IntelliGel Steppy sequencer to play that. If I go to select V and I go out, I see so it's running. Then again, if I want something a little bit more stationary but at the same time weird on an odd measure, I'll take it out. So I'm looking, where are you? You're here, so no hats. And then you get to play this. See? So you can hear how this clock division works. Faster. Faster. This is a nice 303 line, right? Boom, 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 boom. So you see, so instead of overcrowding your sequencer that has only, in case of the IntelliGel Steppy, 4 outputs, it'll be cool to just look at clock division and say like, oh, that's cool. You know, now why do I like it to do this with modular? Because you will not sit behind your computer in a DAW and just program this kind of stuff. This stuff comes with playing a modular. Then again, I'd like to have a little bit more control, so I'll go back into where I was, which was the output D, the fourth output of the IntelliGel Steppy sequencer. And then the drum sounds, we'll get to that. It's coming from the 808, analog drums 808, the Octa, not Octatrack, Octa. Both. Funny. But then Nano Instruments is a brand that does this nice 808 emulation. With a close set. Nice. With the snare drum. That I've just got like on the 2s and 4s obviously, but we're not there yet. Okay. So, clock division, sequencing. Then, this is just drums. And I've got more drums obviously, but then I've got, easy now. Now, if I want to get melodies going, then obviously I need a melodic sequencer. And a melodic sequencer is something that can play, melodies that I can alter. Now, the problem with step sequence stuff is that it revolves so fast that it becomes a little bit tedious to listen to sometimes if the sound is not cool, or it'll become predictable, let me put it that way. So what IntelliGel smartly have done is they created this Metropolis sequencer that does a few things. Obviously there's 8 steps, that's what it does coming out of the box, but then there's a pulse count, so you can tell these 8 steps to just be also 8 steps in length. So if you fill around with where you would like to stick certain time measures, 1 through 8 obviously, you get to play longer sequences because it's going to repeat certain notes. And if that was not all, there's also a gate mode. So you've got like legato sounds, which are sustained sounds. Then there are pulse sounds, which are just like staccato sounds, and then obviously there's a pulse that only starts on the 1, and then there's a blank on the bottom. So 4 different gate modes that you can also introduce, meaning not only does this thing play random or a little bit crazy sort of like pulse counts, it can also do that by note length and shorter notes, which means that the less predictable it gets. Now, the sound I've also screwed up obviously with a ring modulator, introducing some ring modulation, the Ring X Fade by Ericsson's, and of course the almighty low pass filter is what you need. So if I'm listening to that sound, what I have, let's turn off this hat and go in for my sound. You can hear it now. This is a sound coming out of the twin waves clavers. And this is a dual voltage control oscillator, so 2 sounds are coming out. Or you can use it as an LFO as well, so it goes to audio rate, which is cool. We'll get to the bottom row in a second. So obviously, cutoff and ring modulation. Ah, nice. Now, good friend of mine, an esteemed colleague, and you all know him by the name of Circo, told me, Lucien, you know how it goes, nothing farts like a modular. He's right. So with a little bit of ring modulation, obviously, you can introduce overtones within the sound, meaning you need a carrier though. So with a twin, with a dual oscillator module, you can have one oscillator to be the sound source, and you can one to be the carrier that is going to influence the ring modulation here. And then with this module, you can have a crossfade within different parts. So actually, chopped through the middle, it's 2 different ring modulators. I'm only using 1, obviously. And you can stick CV or control in to have these knobs move. They're not moving, but you don't have to stand there and do this. I could also, again, use a clock signal to go in here, a different clock fade, a rotating clock division, and stick it in maybe in one CV here, and it opens up the gate for me. Now I'd like to do it myself, because I would not want to stand here and just like program the whole case and let everything run by itself, which is also what some people do. I'd like to play live, as this is a live techno setup. Yeah. So obviously that's that. So now on the cutoff frequency, on the cutoff filter, there is a drive knob. Ericsson's renowned for their picking a fake kind of distortion sound, loving it. So listen to this. So, you know what I'm saying? So, listen to this. If I'm opening the control voltage level, it's now doing something. Nice. See, instant techno. So the sound that was this becomes this. And I can hear you think, well, listen, come on, man. You know, we need a bigger kick drum. Okay, you ask, I deliver. Better? I thought so. But whoa. And you see how you can get to this stuff pretty fast. So now there's different things. Now what I like about where this is going, as I can tell this machine to just like be friendly to you, or I can have it punch you in the face, whatever you like. And sometimes I love different things. Now what I did in the jam, obviously, taking out a little bit of the ring modulation, I can now also introduce the Echo Cinematic. That's another machine, and I'm going to get over that. That's the Oxy Meta, which is a DJ effect machine. So if say I want to make a breakdown, take out some low end here, and listen to this. Nice. You hear what happened? Let's do it again, but turn it up the other side, which is on a riser this time. Take out low end. 1, 2, 3, and off. How smart is that? There's a space, there's a riser, there's a filter, there's a loop, there's delay, and there's a gator, so it does different things. And then this small knob in the bottom here, it's about intensity. So it's either moderately done, shaped, or in your face again. But let's go back and let's not pick a fight directly. So, okay, bottom row, battering ram. This is my kick drum, obviously, that I told you can be on green, has a nice drive type. This already is a kick that I think like, okay, it's there. You can hear it, bam, bam. So you hear how this is on an afterbeat now? Nice, this filter is absolutely amazing. Then, going back to my kick. Do we need to pick a fight? Let's pick a fight. Now, what I like about it is that if I press it, the knob becomes red. But then it starts here. Okay. So this is very cool. And what I love about this machine is that it's not losing any low end. So if I'm in a club and I've got my sound set to the room, or where it, you know, the sweet spot of the room, if I engage this, it just adds to it. So now this is also another machine to play live with. Here we go, bam, 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 let's go. So if I don't want to use the meta to make a transition, I can say, let's make a transition with this. And just add in another hi-hat that's coming from the Octatrack. We'll get to that in a second. Okay, cool. So the Oxy Meta, I've got the top row sitting there. Now, the bottom row, battering ram, briefly went over it. Pitch control. As you can hear, or if you're hard of hearing, clear, right? So I get to pitch it to is where I'm sticking it, bump. Cool, so my battering ram. And then, see, we can go Rotterdam Parkzicht if we would like. No problem with this thing, so I'm loving it. Battering ram, 11 out of 10. Now the Nano Systems Octa is, there's an Octatrack, there's an Octa to make it even more confusing. This has got nothing to do with this. The Octa is a module that does 808 type stuff. Let's take out the twin waves sounds that are going by the Metropolis and the filter bit that I just played you. Let's focus on what we're hearing right now. So now we've only got these two modules playing, right? The battering ram and the Octa. Let's add some more sounds in. Maybe a snare drum. Nice. That I love to shorten sometimes. That I love to play with the kick drum as well. Now listen what I do with this kick drum that is here. Take out the snare. You know that the snare is there. You know that the head's there. Bap, 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 right? So, but I like to have that 16th playing. Listen to this. I'm using the kick drum as a tom, and I've also pitched it in the key of the rest of my sounds. Now, let's play around with the length. And you know, there is sidechain coming from here into the mixer, which is sitting over here. The mixer is the Endorphins Cockpit 2. We'll get to that in a second. But there is a sidechain output, or at least there's the pulse that's being sent by the battering ram that you can stick into the sidechain input on this cockpit mixer, which means that if I'm opening up this decay knob on the kick, listen to what happens to my close head. It gets docked. Nice. Okay. But if I was to play this sound here, let's pitch it up. Talking about the 808 kick here. So now we got a melody going. Let's turn this down and let's play around with it. Woo! So three things are happening. With two moves, three things are happening. Kick, docking the hats, and a little bit of a bass sound that's being played here. And with the drive knob, it just goes completely berserko. I'm liking that. Right? Now, if I think these hats are a little bit too mild for me, I can obviously introduce another hat. So that's what I'm doing. So 1, 2, 3 on the Octatrack are my true machines. And then now let's introduce a hi-hat here. 707 hi-hat that's sitting there. And I've got a right signal on 6. So now I can introduce different things. Because in the modular world, it means another module just for a hat, another module just for a clap. And I think I've got enough right here, but I need to add and spice it up a little bit. Right? Okay. I'm going to go to bank 1 and go there. What I've done on the... Oh no, I'm getting ahead of myself. Then there's the Perkins voice. I'm not using it today. I'm using this for tonal stuff as a tip by Circo as well. It's not a bass drum module per se, but you can use it for it. I've used it in the quadrophony set. It was really cool, but I'm also using it for tonal stuff because it's absolutely amazing. So that would mean pretty much the same stuff as you're hearing right now with this. Oh, okay, let's go an octave down. Hang on a second. Yeah, nice. I'm gonna stick it embedded in the low end of the frequency range and make it a little shorter even. Just here, yeah? So it's very short. Cool. All right, moving on. So the Perkins voice using for tonal stuff. Then the twin waves, as I already spoke about it, is what you can hear it play here. Long nose, legato. A little bit of ring fade on there. And now we get to something very interesting. Well, there's the Optomix. The Optomix is a low-pass gate, meaning I'm using it to tell this Metropolis to listen to these gate modes here, because it just doesn't listen to it. You have to just stick it somewhere. So the Optomix, I can engage this gate mode, as you can hear. Now I've got longer notes. Now I got shorter notes. You hear? And this machine is doing that because the gate output is going into the Optomix, and then the sound is going from the oscillator into the Optomix, and that is also coming out of the sum output, and that goes through a mixer. Or no, I'm lying. It goes into, yeah, it goes into this mixer. I was right. And then this mixer goes into the Echo Cinematic, which is an effect machine. Now listen to what's happening right here. Delay and an EQ filter. So I get to play with a little bit of craziness. There is a lot of resonance here, and then there's a lot of LFO also. So I can play with the sound now. And if that wasn't enough, I can tell the delay and the reverb times to be a little bit more spacious. You can hear, if I'm exaggerating it, say, let's take out the sound. That's a delay that I can alter. You can hear it, but there's knob record. So if I was to play the sound, it just recorded what I did right here, and it plays it in a sequence if it gets a clock signal. How cool is that? And it does that in a sort of a polymetric way, but it does it really absolutely amazingly, so that's cool. And then there's the cockpit mixer. So I've got another summing mixer. I'm using the MAR, M-A-R, by Nano. I'm using that XY mixer as a summing mixer to collect these different sounds. Whatever, I've got more sound sources. And then I will stick that output into one of the stereo inputs of the Cockpit 2, and the Cockpit 2, the output goes into the meta, and then the meta goes into the Octatrack, and we can still follow it. So that's how I've done it. So the Echo Cinematic is something that I can use on this sound, obviously, which you saw me do in the jam, and then record some things. So there's a lot of stuff happening, and then just with a flick of a switch, it's off, and I can do different things again, which is really cool, and that's how I set stuff up. Now, taking this out, on the Octatrack there's different things. Heads, rides, loops, and this loop just to get a little bit of a Gary Beck kind of vibe going, you know, out, heads. So you can build up your sound. You can contemplate, what is my next move? How would I like to do it? Do I need to play this 808 kick? No, let's mute it. Do I want to play the snare? Yes. So I'm just going to go for my snares, take the heads out, take everything out. So as I'm thinking, only the close head is playing on track 2 now. Let's play. Or the open head, yeah. See, a nice groove over the top. So this head, this percussive loop on 5 gets decked out a little bit. Snare drum separately coming out of the Octa, out of the module, the Octa module into. So I can address it by going in here. It's on the second IntelliGel Steppy on the second track. So let's play techno. Nice. Right cymbal on 6 on the Octatrack. And instantly we're in business. And on track 7, there's always going to be a tonal thing of information. So what I've done here is, if I've got a long sustained note, but by means of the LFO on the Octatrack, I've told the Octatrack to just go do different things. Oh, we're in heaven. Oh, I'm loving that. Meaning you get to really like get your crowd zone in. And then if you turn it down, the filter that is, it starts to play around because I've told the LFO to just go do something different. So listening to this, and that's on the one sequence, one pattern. If I go to a different pattern, it plays something different. See what I mean? Now all of a sudden it starts to become a different thing. And I'm thinking like, okay, I would need to take that snare out of the way because it constantly plays the same thing. Same thing, I'm not using the meta for this time, just opening up the crossfader, shortening the snare sounds and playing different things in here. And again, the beat gets propelled forward. So if I wanted to do a transition between this sound and the sound that we've got sitting over here of the Clavis twin waves, let's do a transition here. So I guess that is how I'm doing it. Now, I love the modular approach. I was a bit scared of it, but I'm not anymore, as I finally found a way to really understand where I'm going with certain things, why I'm doing certain things, and how I'm going to go about it. So it has to really start with a plan. You got to make a plan in order for it to work, otherwise it just doesn't, it's not going to pan out for you. Now, very small setup. I'm really liking it, you know. I mean, I have to, as said before, take the multi-clock with me because the gravity, the Sitka gravity, it has a bit of a MIDI delay. I'm not saying that it's that module. I do think that, you know, it invokes a little bit of latency coming from the Octatrack. So the Octatrack as a direct in, I've tried it and it was a little bit too much of a lag. So I didn't like putting loops over the top. So that's why the multi-clock is back on the table. I do think I'm going to roll with this sort of like setup. Now, let me know in the comment section if it's something that you really like. Don't be a stranger. Let me know what you use to make complex techno rhythms. This is my approach, obviously. If you made it this far into the video, you sir, I'm an absolute superstar. If you want to check out learntoplay.live, I will teach you how you can do this stuff by means of tabletops, by means of modulars. If you want to learn how to play live and make a concise, convincing sort of like performance, that's your one-stop shop. Learntoplay.live. Now I've got so many brands and people involved. It's cool. People that are going to help you out. I've dropped the names before. DJ Pierre is there. Joe Smooth is there. Gerrit is there from Retro Kids. The people from Morph Modular are involved. We're talking to Melbourne Instruments. We are talking to Atti Bau, who's doing immersive audio and Dolby Atmos. Funky Void is involved. Throw Varsty's involved. I mean, I even spoke to Aura. At some point, this is going to be the course where everybody wants to be, because you're going to learn it from the people that are doing it and making the sound as we speak. So we've got legends that can tell you how it started, and we've got people that are very relevant right now that are also, like, you know, going to tell you how it works out now. So learntoplay.live. Go and check that out. Now, thanks for watching. Next week I'll be back with another video. If you like the modular approach and my modular stuff, it's not a modular channel all of a sudden, no, but I'm just trying to progress and roll with the tides, and, you know, and be a little bit more versatile and try to push myself to think out of the box, sticking everything in a small box. Anyway, so thanks for watching. I'm Analog Kitchen. Don't be a stranger. Click like, subscribe, also channel, and I'll catch you next week on another video. Peace. I'm out.